Alrighty, welcome back to Vector Geek Tutorials. I'm your Vector Geek and host, Marty. And in today's episode, what we're going to do is build a stack of rocks for our underwater world and also a submarine. Let's not faff about, let's get into it. And here we have our submarine and our rocks from our little water cube world scene. Let's build them. Okay, here we are in Illustrator and we have our stones and our rocks just on our water cube base. What we're going to do is build one of these rocks and then extrude it and stack them up. So let's just delete this existing one, select all, delete. Let's go to the pen tool and let's start to draw out our rock. And what we're going to do is we're just going to use some straight edges here. And then we're going to round them out with a filter, expand it, and then carry on our way with rock building. Alright, that should do us. There's our rock. Select said rock, head over to the appearance palette, go to effects, come down to stylize and rounded corners. Preview, and let's make this 4mm, this one. Yours may have to be a little bit different. Let's click OK, and then let's go ahead and expand it, because you see in structural view it still has square corners. But if we go over to object and expand appearance, boom, there's your rounded corners. So now let's extrude our shape. So let's move it to the right a little. Effects, 3D, extrude and bevel. Now what we want to do is, of course, preview on first, and we want to get rid of this off-axis front view, and we want to click this menu and come down to isometric top, and boom, as some people say, there is our extruded rock, or the beginnings of it. Now we need to select a rounded cap to make those edges a little smoother. Any greater than 4 here, I think the geometry is going to be affected quite badly, so let's leave it at 4. Let's drop the ambient light value down to 30 so we have some contrast. And of course, let's introduce another light and put that up here so we can have some light on those edges there. And there we go, we have our rock all extruded and in 3D. Alrighty, let's have a look at making some variety here. We need a few different looking stones, and we've established this first one. Let's have a look at these ones over here on the left. Same process to build them as the first one here. Then let's have a look at a shortcut via the graphic styles over here to make our workflow a little quicker. So let's start with this one at the top here. And let's go to effects, 3D, extrude bevel. Let's dial in some parameters. Let's click OK. And then for these next two, what we can do is apply the same parameters to these shapes here by having this one selected and going to the graphic styles palette, and you can basically just drag these in. All right, and here it is, graphic style 2. You can rename these if you want. And now that we have extruded this one and we have a graphic style of it over here in the graphic style palette, we can go ahead and select the next two and apply the graphic style. Of course, there is a little bit of geometry, funky geometry going on with these, so never fear, you can always select it, go back into 3D and extrude from your appearance palette and change the parameters. And now we can make a bit of a stack of these stones. So let's move this one here, and let's grab this one here. You also may want to reflect certain things. Yeah, so there you go, something like that. Let's scale this one down a tad. There we go, and now we have the beginnings of a stack. After having established our little stack of stones, we can start changing some of the colors if you wanted to. So if I was to select this, this one down here, I like to head up to the color guide, and I already have these muted colors based on the first color that I applied. So now I can come in here and get a little bit of variety. And there you have it. You've got the beginnings of a cool little stack of rocks for the underwater world. Right, let's move on. Okay, here we are with our submarine, and if we just take a look at the structural view, Command Y, you'll see that some of the 3D has been rendered out and some other parts are still in their 3D state, so still an editable state. Command Y to go back. So what we're going to do is build our little submarine here, but I always find it handy to have a reference point. So over here in this document, we have all the parts in our submarine lined up here, the finished bits, and then down here we have all the basic shapes ready to go. They're all just circles and rectangles with fills and with strokes. So let's do this. Let's revolve things and let's extrude things. What I'm going to do is probably speed this part of the video up. You can always pause it to have a look at the parameters that I put into the 3D parts inside of the extrude, bevel, revolve 3D component window. Our first part is part of the propeller system. Let's select it. Let's go over to the appearance palette and let's select 3D, extrude and bevel. Hit preview. Of course, we want isometric right on this occasion. I think we need about 13 or something for extrusion. Let's take the light down to 20. Let's crank the blend steps up to 35. And let's put 2 lights in here. We want something like that. And OK. Now for the main body of the propeller. This one doesn't have a fill, it's just a yellow stroke of about 6 point. And again, head over to the effects, 3D, extrude and bevel. Of course, we want isometric right. We want an extrude depth of 26. Ooh, need to click preview, of course. Alrighty, here we have all our little shapes, rectangles, circles, trapezoid, and most of them are just regular extrusions as I show you the process. And what we'll do with this little submarine window is we'll expand its extrusion, and then we'll add a few more shapes overlapping and intersecting. Then we'll head over to the toolbox, grab the shape builder tool, and delete some of the parts so we're just left with the shadow for the window there, and then assemble it. On the subject of shadow-like colors, what I've been using is a rich black instead of just a regular black. What I've been doing is applying the shape with a black fill and then adding cyan, magenta and yellow, 50% of each, to the mix to make it a rich black. Then from the appearance palette, go ahead and select an opacity setting. I've been using soft light and multiply for most of these items when applying a shadow. Some of those softer shadows found around the bottom edges of certain items that can be applied with a blur filter. That's found, of course, in the appearance palette under the FX menu. Of course, when you apply the blur filter, you'll need to adjust the parameters to your liking. Okay, now for the build of the main body of our yellow submarine with the glass front. So, of course, this is a revolved little vector line. So we need to make one of these first and get the shape right. So this isn't too hard. All we're going to do is grab the ellipse tool, and I've got my smart guides on, and I'm going to draw an ellipse about this big here. And I'll just change the color of the vector to red, and I'll just widen this a little. And then what we do is we grab the scissors and we cut this guy in half from top to bottom. And we discard one of the sections. I'll just put it over here like that. And then back to this one here, what we got to do is modify this just a little bit. But the first thing we want to do is go to Appearance Panel and 3D revolve this guy. So preview, and of course we want isometric view left, and let's just fix the lights so the light casts from the front, and another one kind of goes along the top, kind of like that to the back. Yeah, something like that. And that will just about do us. Maybe just knock that down to 30. Okay. Now what we need to do, Command Y, is this middle point right here, we need to extend the handles up so we have more of this shape here on the left, so we can get that nice sort of pill shape. So what we do is we come up to the pen tool and we grab the convert anchor point tool, and we click on this guy and drag, and I'm going to hold down the shift key and drag the handles out kind of like that. A little more, a little more, and on the other side as well. Oops, whoa, Command Z. So we want something like that, and maybe just drag this out a little bit. That's what we want. Tad more. Yeah, so now we've got our submarine body for everything to be assembled to. The process to create the glass nose of the submarine is a complex one, but it's achievable. All you really got to do is duplicate out the body of the submarine a few times. Once you have duplicated the submarine body a couple of times, you need to select one and expand it. The orange one is the one that I expanded in this little build. Also, you'll need to create 2 ellipses and intersect them like I've done here. Duplicate those a couple of times, and then the rest is all about positioning, and then of course clipping masks. For the shadows and reflections on the glass nose of the submarine, it's just a matter of using the shape builder tool, overlapping different shapes. Just like I've taken a copy of the nose of the submarine here, and with the pen tool, I've just gone ahead and drawn a curve over the face of the nose of the submarine, selected both, grab the shape builder tool and just subtract the bit I don't need. And with this piece selected, go ahead and apply some gradient from the gradient palette, then head over to the toolbox, grab the gradient tool, make sure it's set to radial, and then set the gradient to your liking. What I've done with that nice transparency part of the gradient is to set the white to an opacity of 0. And then once all that's done, you can head to the appearance palette and set the overall opacity to a lower setting, maybe 30% or something. Of course, the highlights are just simple ellipses, the largest one having a gradient applied to it and then the opacity reduced, and the smaller ones scaled to whatever size you like with white fill, and of course the opacity reduced on them too. Also, to ensure that the glass nose is a little bit richer in color, what we're going to do is use the recolor artwork. So head up to the edit menu, recolor artwork, make sure that you click the edit button and also click the link button, and then head down to the saturation slider and crank that up a little until it's a nice rich blue. Click OK and you're good to go. Additional shadows and curves for the body of the submarine are just simple line curves drawn with the pen tool. Once we've established these, we just head on over to the stroke palette and apply a nice thick stroke, and then go further down to the profiles and apply one of those thin, thick, thin profiles, as I like to describe them. And all that's needed now is some blur applied to it, and of course a reduction in its opacity, and you are done. And finally, all you need to do is assemble your submarine, making sure that each piece is positioned correctly in the layer order. Select each piece and either bring to the front or send to the back. Apple open bracket, Apple closed bracket to achieve the same combination of bring forward or send backward. Alrighty, so that concludes episode 2. We've built the submarine, we've built the stack of rocks. Why not join me next week? Come back and we'll draw some fish, we'll draw the tank, fill it with water, and assemble everything inside it. Alright, thanks very much. See you later.